Hi, I'm Julie Hawks. Welcome to the Laws of Peace, where you will learn how to understand and apply God's laws in simple ways so that you can take small steps to create big changes and miracles and become the person you are always meant to be. The answers are in the scriptures. Let me show you how to find them. Today's episode is called How to Wreck Any Relationship and What to Do Instead. This month, we are focused on the law of increase, which is all about gratitude. Gratitude connects us to the Lord in powerful ways, and it opens us to receive abundance in powerful ways. The opposite of gratitude is complaining and criticizing. And complaining and criticizing will wreck any relationship that you have. The hard part that we don't really want to acknowledge is that criticizing and complaining is a way to exert external control over others when we feel internally out of control. It's a painful way to manipulate, and it causes tremendous damage. It poisons relationships. What we focus on grows. Let's go look at this from a story in the scriptures. This is found in 1st Nephi chapter 5, and we're going to begin in verse 2. But first, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory. Nephi and his brothers are off getting the plates, and they have been gone far too long. And Sariah is incredibly worried about them. And so we begin in a big fight that Lehi and Sariah are having. It starts in verse 2. She says, "For she had supposed that we had perished in the wilderness." I love the word supposed because supposed gets us in trouble all the time. It's assumptions. We make assumptions that cause us pain. And if you want to read about somebody else who made so many assumptions and supposed that they were going to die, go check out Alma chapter 15 in the story of Zeezrom. Anyway, she had supposed that we had perished in the wilderness, and she had complained against my father, telling him that he was a visionary man, saying, "Behold, thou hast led us forth from the land of our inheritance, and our sons are no more, and we perish in the wilderness." So not only was she worried that her kids were dead, she was also assuming that they were going to die. And after this manner of language had my mother complained against my father. Now let's look at how he responds. In verse 4, he says, "And it came to pass that my father spake unto her, saying, I know that I am a visionary man." He agreed with her. He validated her worries. There's so much we can learn about in this from relationships about how he handles this. "For had I not seen the things of God in a vision, I should not have known the goodness of God, but had tarried at Jerusalem and had perished with my brethren." He's like, "You're right. You are 100% right. I am a visionary man. And had I not seen God and had I not had these visions, then we would have stayed in Jerusalem and we would have been destroyed." And then he says something really profound. He says in verse 5, "But behold, I have obtained a land of promise, in which things I do rejoice. Yea, and I know that the Lord will deliver my sons out of the hands of Laban and bring them down again unto us in the wilderness." Okay, I'm gobsmacked. They are sitting in a pile of sand next to a tent in the hot sun. They're not in the land of promise. They don't have the brass plates. They don't even have their kids. They're missing. And yet he says, "Well, I'm going to rejoice because we've obtained a land of promise." There's a powerful principle here. Lehi is rejoicing in something that is going to come because he trusts God. And that changes everything. And it's a powerful principle that we learn when we're studying the secular law of increase, that we're grateful for something before it happens. You can read more about this in Abinadi's speech. He talks about things that come as if they had already come. Beautiful way to look at this. Do you have the faith to rejoice in what's ahead? What hasn't come yet? What if we rejoiced in people and the people our loved ones are becoming, rather than complaining and criticizing their current weaknesses and flaws? How would that change the relationship? Remember, what we focus on grows. In verse 6, "And after this manner of language did my father Lehi comfort my mother, Sariah, concerning us, while we journeyed in the wilderness up to the land of Jerusalem to obtain the record of the Jews." And in verse 7, "And when we had returned to the tent of my father, behold, their joy was full, and my mother was comforted. And she spake, saying, Now I know of a surety that the Lord hath commanded my husband to flee into the wilderness. Yea, I also know of a surety that the Lord hath protected my sons, and delivered them out of the hands of Laban, and hath given them the power whereby they could accomplish the things which the Lord had commanded them. And after this manner of language did she speak. And it came to pass that they did rejoice exceedingly and did offer sacrifice and burnt offerings unto the Lord. And they gave thanks unto the God of Israel. Do you see how gratitude is showing up in the story? And do you see how gratitude and faith brought peace to Lehi? And then he was also able to share that peace and comfort his wife. We're having two opposite experiences here. Sariah is complaining and scared, and Lehi is rejoicing. Luckily, we have the experience of seeing how Lehi handles this experience. And I'm not saying that you're never going to complain or you're never going to be afraid or you're never going to be scared. I'm just saying that when you get to that point, how are you going to handle it and what are you going to do? One of the challenges we have when it comes to relationships specifically is that we've watched too many Hallmark movies and we've seen too many perfect relationships on Instagram. And so sometimes we have unrealistic expectations about what a relationship would look like. And then when we get scared and we feel out of control on the inside, we start trying to change another person by complaining and criticizing. And not only does it not work, it wrecks the relationship. I want to share with you a quote from Catherine Thomas in her book, Selected Writings. It's kind of long, but it's absolutely worth it. This is what she said. She said, "How will we ever learn Christ-like love unless we have a chance to practice it in the face of opposites?" Right? We had two opposite experiences with Lehi and Sariah. One was focused on the promises to come and faith and gratitude, and one was making assumptions about all the things that were going to go wrong. And every day we have a choice on which we're going to focus on. Back to her quote. Let me start again. How should we ever learn Christ-like love unless we have a chance to practice it in the face of opposites? Every disrupted relationship, whether in our own home or within a particular group or community, is a chance to forge the divine nature in ourselves. It would appear that all the people in our lives are there for important reasons. We stand in a sacred relationship to them because we and they cannot be made perfect without each other. Nevertheless, we remember that seldom are they given to us to satisfy us. Rather, they are given to us to make possible a much greater love than we would have been capable of in a situation where everybody agreed with us, everybody loved us, and everybody saw everything the way we do. These abrasive people in our lives are friends in disguise. They are there to teach us to perfect love in ourselves, not to perfect them. Let's end that quote for just a second. We saw this play out with Lehi and Sariah. Instead of telling her to have more faith, he agrees with her. He validates her and comforts her. Her complaining was causing her pain. Her expectations were not being met. Let's continue with Catherine Thomas. She says, "We don't need ideal relationships in order to be happy." Let me repeat that. We don't need ideal relationships in order to be happy. End quote. However, we need to do our part. And obviously, we need to have boundaries. And obviously, we need to not stay in an abusive space. But the other person doesn't have to be perfect or show up in a certain way for us to be happy. She continues, "We can live happily with less than the ideal because each precious relationship can be made more tender and sweet and can be enriched with that spirit of at-one-ment that changes everything around us." Then she's going to say something that's a gut punch. Are you ready for this? "I did not see the relationship between the way I treated other people and the way I felt inside. I thought that what they were doing made me unhappy, but actually it was how I was treating them that made me unhappy. Is it possible that much of the emotional pain we have comes not from the love we weren't given in the past, but from the love we ourselves aren't giving in the present?" End quote. That is powerful information that can shift and change your relationships. Instead of looking at what everyone else is doing wrong or how they're not showing up in the way you expect, perhaps you could look internally and create some self-awareness and go, what am I putting into this relationship? And how am I causing this other person pain? Let's finish her quote. She says, "With respect to mending relationship trouble, there is a stunning insight to process. If there is trouble, each person in the relationship has contributed some part of the problem. Therefore, each one has something to repent of as well as something to learn from the experience, and also some new choices to make with respect to the relationship. We can't begin to heal a relationship until we have acknowledged our part in the dysfunction. Truly, we receive what we send out." In Alma 41:15, it says, "For that which ye do send out shall return to you again and be restored." if we don't like what we're getting in a particular relationship, we may need to check out what we're sending into that relationship. End quote. What are you sending into your relationships? Remember, for the third time, what we focus on grows. Are you complaining? Are you criticizing? Are you putting this person down? Are they becoming discouraged? I have a friend, and her husband used to spend hours and significant amounts of time finding the perfect gift for her. Whether it was a Mother's Day gift, a birthday gift, a Christmas gift, he wanted to give her the perfect gift. And every single time he gave her this well thought out gift, she would return it. There was always something wrong with it. It was the wrong color. It just wasn't exactly what she was thinking of. And she returned every single gift. And fast forward years later, one day she said to me, I don't know, 10 or 15 years later, she's like, I just don't understand why my husband doesn't buy me presents anymore. She criticized and complained so much about the gifts he gave her, he finally gave up. Is that happening in your relationship? Is there some space where you're criticizing and complaining, and the person that is on the other side of that is losing hope and is feeling discouraged? Ooh. Let's go look at another scripture. In Doctrine and Covenants 78, verse 19, it says, And he who receiveth all things with thankfulness shall be made glorious, and the things of this earth shall be added unto him, even 100-fold, yea, more. There's the principle of abundance within gratitude, that when we're grateful, the God will give us 100-fold more. We see that in Job. If you go read the end of Job, you can see that after everything was taken away, he got back double. It speaks to the more principle that we've talked about in past podcast episodes. So are you receiving the person in your life with thankfulness? Marilyn Jeanette, in her book, Feel Free to Prosper, says, the more gratitude we feel, the more we attract to be grateful for. Apply that to your relationship. And then she continues, while we focus on increases and expands, the more we complain, the more we will attract to complain about. So let's talk about what to do instead. What can we do instead of complaining and criticizing? The other person is driving us crazy, or there's something that simply isn't working in the relationship. What do we do? So there's 3 things I want to talk to you about today. The first one is learn to manage your own emotions instead of trying to control someone else when you feel scared, afraid, or out of control. So that means that you need to study and focus and solve and manage how you're feeling on the inside. And that's a whole nother podcast. Number 2, look for the good and express it out loud. Showing appreciation can change everything. And you want to be specific in your appreciation, not just for the things that someone else is doing, but also for their character traits. I appreciate how honest you are. I appreciate what a hard worker you are. I appreciate how you never give up. Those things we can show gratitude, and that helps build the character of the person that we're talking to. In fact, President Nelson supports this with a beautiful quote. He said, to appreciate, to say I love you and thank you is not difficult, but these expressions of love and appreciation do more than acknowledge a kind thought or deed. These are signs of sweet civility. As grateful partners look to the good in each other and sincerely pay compliments to one another, wives and husbands will strive to become the persons described in those compliments. End quote. Can you see how complimenting, gratitude, appreciation, thankfulness can shift and change the entire environment of a relationship and create connection? Number 3, if you have a real problem, discuss it by focusing on the problem, not the person, and by being clear about what you need instead of what is wrong. When you go to somebody and say, you're not, you don't, I don't, and all you do is criticize and complain, it shuts the other person down almost instantly. And then they're unable to take the feedback that you're giving them or to make corrective change because they just feel like they're never going to be enough. So instead, I've got 2 phrases for you that are very, very helpful. The first one is, I would love it if. I would love it if fill in the blank. I would love it if we could go on a date on Friday night. I would love it if fill in the blank. Like I said, whatever. And the other one is, I love it when. I love it when you text me through the day. I love it when you help me with the dishes when you come home. I love it when you give me a hug after a long day. Those things are building instead of destroying. I invite you to really be aware and be intentional about the words you're using and the things that you're saying. Pay attention to when you start to criticize or when you start to complain, and notice it, and then flip that on its head and flip it to a compliment, flip it to a gratitude. Look for the good and see how it will shift and change and help you to be more connected in your relationships. It will create so much abundance for you, not only financially, but also with your energy and your health, and also in your relationships. Thank you so much for being here. If you have loved this podcast, will you do me a favor? Will you share it with somebody else? Again, thanks for being here.